Hello, everyone, and welcome to this informational chat and opportunity to ask questions about the permaculture design course that's being hosted by Wild Abundance and the School of Integrated Living at Earth Haven Eco Village. That is a mouthful in June of this year. My name is Chloe, and I am one of the co-facilitators of the program. And I have been engaging with the living world in a curious and reciprocal way as long as I can remember, having awareness of being able to do so. And I have been studying and practicing permaculture for the last 20 years or so. And this is my first time co-facilitating a permaculture design course, and I'm really excited to kind of take a lot of hands-on practical skills and knowledge and experience that I've been cultivating over the last decade or so, applying a lot of these skills and bringing it into a teaching setting and a facilitation setting. And really excited to be working with my friend Zev, who's going to introduce himself in a minute. Um, and just bringing our passions and our skills together and to be at Earth Haven, which is just such an incredible example of humans engaging with permaculture in a really dynamic way. And we'll talk more about that as the call goes on. So that's a little bit about me.
Mm. I'm Zev Friedman, and I am the other instructor, the other lead instructor, along with Chloe this time. And I'm sitting on my deck at the Butterfly House at Earth Haven, and with the carpenter bees buzzing loudly around me in process of eating the deck. And I've been living at Earth Haven for 13 years now, and teaching, well, I began apprenticing to teach permaculture design certification courses with Patricia Allison in 2008 and have been teaching them since then. And trying to live this life as well. And when I say this life, that can mean a lot of different things to different people, which we'll be going into very deeply in the PDC. What are all the styles of permaculture, the things that can mean? It's a very diverse array of ways of life. And I feel like I'm a student of it still, but I've also been farming and doing forest agriculture and working on natural buildings and doing all the skills like Chloe was referring to, kind of learning the hard skills, as well as I worked as a permaculture consultant for 12 years and doing lots of teaching during that time. I now run an organization called Cooperate Western North Carolina, which is a regional mutual aid and cooperative economics network in Western North Carolina that is an extension of permaculture thinking into economic and social and relational design work. So I'll stop there for now and hand it over to NikiAnne.
Yeah, hello. I'm NikiAnne, and I am in Gateway neighborhood at Earth Haven Eco Village right now. And I am one of the co-directors of the School of Integrated Living, which lives within Culture's Edge nonprofit. And we are Earth Haven's main branch of our educational mission. And gosh, I moved to Earth Haven 13 years ago, I think, and co-founded Soil, the School of Integrated Living, 11 years ago. And it's been one of my biggest joys at Earth Haven is hosting students and visitors to come check out this developing eco village, this experiment, and with permaculture at its base. And I am delighted that this PDC is collaborating with Wild Abundance and Cooperate WNC to be in this village setting. And so we have over 115 people who live here as residents who are in support of this educational intensive that happens for 2 weeks on the land. And this time it's in June. So I'm excited to answer any questions and to get to know some of you. So thanks for being here with us.
Awesome. So I'm going to just give a brief overview of the PDC now, just to kind of give you a sense of the overall flow and the structure of it. For anyone who isn't familiar with it, the permaculture design certification course is a global standard core curriculum, that there are thousands of teachers around the world teaching a 72-hour curriculum, which is was developed and kind of standardized by the Permaculture Institute in Australia, which is where the word and kind of lineage of permaculture originated. And then most PDCs are significantly longer than 72 hours, including this one, because what makes it more meaningful is to engage regional content and content that comes along with the kind of expertise and experience of the instructors and the community where a PDC is based. And ours is like that. So this is a 14-day PDC. There's one break day in the middle, so it's 13 days of content. There are PDCs that are as long as 22 days to allow room for a lot more hands-on and a lot more specific content. People do them stretched out across the course of a year. It's kind of all different formats, but this is the one that we're doing in collaboration with Wild Abundance because it feels like it's more accessible to people traveling in from far away, and getting a kind of a diverse group of participants who can access this format in this amount of time. And so during the course, we'll be going, one of the permaculture principles is to design from patterns to details. That means going from the general to the specific, making the big decisions first, and then assembling little decisions around those big primary decisions. And that's how the course is structured too. We start out with the general, with the big ideas and the history and the principles and ethics of permaculture, talking about some social context and kind of what role we see permaculture playing on the planet right now, in the dealing with the crises of climate change and warfare and economic inequalities that are huge issues on the planet right now. And then we move from that kind of general picture into more and more specific information about aquaculture and certain types of farming and building and energy systems and animals, but always coming back to what we think permaculture excels at is making the connections between things evident. So we're not going to be delivering information, the most information on pasturing cows. People could go somewhere else and get deeper information on that, but we'll be delivering information about how pasturing cows can be related to composting, can be related to annual agriculture, energy systems, and making those kind of systems work. They're interrelated. And then during the PDC, we'll also be culminating all of that work in the design projects. And the design projects are where participants get a chance to apply all of these ideas and information and understandings to some real life sites and clients, acting as if you were a professional permaculture designer, interviewing clients who are doing a farm or a home site, or a pasture. In this case is one of our projects. We have 3 different design sites, and people will be breaking up into groups of 5 and working over the last 6 days of the class to develop permaculture designs and then present them to everyone at the end. And then we'll have a big party. So that's the basic flow of the class. And I'll stop there for now.
So I'll share a little bit about what, as Zev and I have been kind of dreaming and scheming the details of this class, what are some features that I'm really excited about, and then I'll give you some space to share about that too, Zev. Like we both shared, we've been in this world of kind of trying to engage design and systems for more regenerative, reciprocal, sustainable relationships between humans and the rest of the living world. And there are a lot of really beautiful concepts and ideas. A lot of permaculture experimental sites and ideas have come from tropical regions. There are a lot of really great ideas that when you put them into practice here or in other places that we've lived, they don't work very well, or they need to be adjusted. And so we're both really excited to bring that like hands-on real world experience and share not only sort of like recipes about step 1, step 2, step 3, this is the way to do something, but like Zeb was saying, really dig deeper into how we can see and engage with patterns and systems and really root that in not only the bioregion where we live, but our own life and our own limitations within our own lives. Because a beautiful permaculture design that's really well thought out, that requires more time and maintenance than the person or community tending that site can give it, is not going to be successful. We need to include ourselves in the equation as well, and our own human resources, our own capacities, our own limitations, our own joys, our own sorrows. So weaving all those things into how we bring this course to be is exciting for us. And I'll let Zev talk more about Earth Haven because he lives there. I've spent a lot of time there over the years too. But being at a site which has really from its inception been engaging with permaculture principles and practices in design, in practice, in renewing designs and changing, in receiving feedback, integrating feedback, it's really just such a powerful way to engage with this learning, because you can see it, you can feel it, you can talk to people who've been living it. And so that's another exciting part about this permaculture course. And it's very beautiful here in June, and there will be fireflies, and there will be group meals 3 times a day, beautiful homemade food, a lot of it locally and from the land here are there at Earth Haven. So that's another piece that for me has really drawn me into facilitation, is just what can happen when a group of people who have a shared desire and intention to do something life-giving with our interactions on this earth. So much of what we see humans doing just doesn't feel very life-giving or positive. And so to come together with a group of people who at least have that desire and that will to make a different choice and to engage in a different way, in and of itself can be so powerful and transformative. And then the connections that will be built over that time, the ways that we learn from each other. We're all teachers and students in this container together, and that's a really beautiful thing to be experiencing as a community over such a long stretch of time. This isn't just a weekend course. It's like we're going to be living and eating and sharing together. So that's another piece that I'm really excited about. And a piece of my background that I didn't share is I've been working with Wild Abundance for the last 10 years. And as an instructor, mostly doing strategy and administration and copywriting. But I've witnessed this transformative, like deep connection that can happen when students come, even for just a weekend class, and are enveloped in a space where some of these dreams and ideals and visions that many of us have are being actualized. There's just like this renewal and rejuvenation and inspiration that I've seen happen over and over and over again. And so I'm excited to be a part of that in this course also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just segueing right out of what you're saying, Chloe, in terms of what I'm most excited about is what I call transformative education, but it's like what it's really talking about is understanding how do we as people grow and move towards what we most long to feed in the world and in life. And I feel like the PDC can be a really beautiful instrument and vehicle and container for that. It's bringing all this information in and all these concepts and stuff, but like Chloe is saying, it's also creating this relational container where we're trying to make it safe enough for us to look at our lives and the choices that we're making and how they're lined up with the things we most care about, and if there are ways that we can design our lives to actually be the way we want them to be and to be contributing to the healing of people and the planet, and of our communities and of our relationships. So that's one of the things that's kind of like a sneaky goal of the permaculture design certification courses for me. It's like not stated in the curriculum, but that's it, is because all this information doesn't come to much unless it lands in us and has a place to live, and a way for us to live it out. So that's something I'm really excited about. I'm also really grateful. Like when I moved to Earth Haven, a big part of why I finally was able to make the leap, even though I had been coming here for over 10 years before I moved here and had friends and community here, was that I was teaching permaculture classes, and I recognized Earth Haven as this amazing living classroom for permaculture classes, a 330-acre property where many people have been putting everything they have into it for decades to try to create and understand what it means to create actual regenerative healing systems at all levels, at the physical and the buildings and the relational and the social and the economic, birth and death. And so to be able to teach it here where you all participants get to land in that living system that is our life, and then kind of learn from elements of that, is really exciting for me to share. And then the last thing I'll speak to is when Wild Abundance approached us about doing the PDC here, I was really clear because I work full-time with my organization, Cooperate WNC, and we're focusing on cooperative and community scale approaches. How do we kind of regrow village culture as a basis for human thriving and surviving? And I said I'm willing to do the PDC if we can focus on cooperative strategies and how we can do permaculture not just as homesteads and individual families, but working in larger collaborative arrangements where people can rely on each other and grow trust and have more capacity through that. And so we're going to be emphasizing those kinds of examples and design approaches in the class. And I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to do that. I'll stop there.
Yeah, I want to kind of pick up on what you were saying, Zev, with this embodied learning experience. And I was just talking with another instructor of ours around how we learn best. And we're taught to believe that facts and knowledge are like the meat of our learning. And yes, they're important, but it's really through stories and the lived experience that really the wisdom and knowledge actually gets embedded in our bones and flesh. And so I think of this 30-year experiment as this storied landscape. And so that's what this classroom, this living classroom, is as a village. It's an offering for others to learn from the experiments and the lessons learned and the mistakes and the successes and the collaborations that in this intensive 2-week experience. And I just want to just say that word again. It's intense. There's an intensive, it's an immersion. And so it's so rich, and it asks us to, bring as robust selves as we can for this short amount of time. I say short, I mean 2 weeks is also a long amount of time, so it's however you look at it. And so we do our best as staff, not only Chloe and Zev as instructors, but there's a handful of us as support staff that are backing up them and all of the participants to have the most amount of well-being possible to take in the information and hopefully have it land as embodied knowledge. And so we mentioned the food being cooked, but there's also some other staff that support check-ins every day and are available throughout the day to kind of check in on how your lodging's going. And we have a wellness bundle that we have and can support people in navigating what it's like to be out of your comfort zone and also in an environment that might be really different from where you live. So it's different here, and we don't have street lights. There's hazards from the natural world that with our alertness, we remain safe with them, but whether that's snakes or ticks or uneven ground. And so we're just here to help that your whole being arrive and be tended as you're doing this deep learning journey. And it really, as Zev said, with the transformative learning experience, there's a community and a village within the village and community that you all, if you participate, belong to. And that's been so beautiful to see that cohesion and those threads of connection really live well beyond these 2 weeks. So yeah, I just get excited to support that as one of those support staff members. Maybe this is a good time to lead into question answer.
Yeah, let's open it up to questions. I just want to mention briefly before we get into that there are only 3 spots left in the course. So it's almost full. and you can register. I'll just drop the link to where the registration happens. The registration is through Wild Abundance. You can click the link on, there's a class page on the soil website too. So on the Earth Haven, you can get there through Earth Haven and soil, or you can get there through Wild Abundance, but the actual registration happens through Wild Abundance. And it's a 2-step registration process. So you register for the course, and then you also have to register for a meal plan. So it's not an optional meal plan. We're all going to be taking meals together. And then you have the choice to find your own lodging and accommodation, camp for free, or try to book lodging through Earth Haven, and that's another process. So there's kind of the education, the food, and the lodging are 3 different pieces, but the course itself and the food have to happen together for you to be fully enrolled in the course. And yeah, there's just 3 spots left, so I imagine they will get filled pretty soon, and I'll just put the link to the class page in the chat, and we can start with the Q&A.
Thanks, Chloe.
Yeah.
Yeah, just go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question.
When is it? What are the dates?
June 16th through 29th.
And how much does it cost?
It's a sliding scale. And the sliding scale, and like I said, there's a separate cost for the food, but the sliding scale for the program is $1,650 to $3,300. So you locate yourself based on your income and where you fit in that sliding scale. And then the meal plan, I believe, is $620. Do you know, NikiAnne?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Plus lodging.
Yeah, so lodging, you can camp for free. There's a really nice campground with outhouse, shower. NikiAnne, you can speak to the lodging perhaps better than I can.
Yeah, so camping's included, and that's in our forested campground, a 1.5-minute walk from where we eat and the council hall. It's central. And then members of the community have offered either a room in their home or a cabin they might have on their property. Yeah, so there's kind of, yeah, detached units and embedded rooms in homes that we have a limited number and they usually get gobbled up. I think there might still be some available, and they're shared and private. And so those have anywhere from a 2-minute walk to the village center where we gather for our main hearth up to a 10-minute walk in some of the outlying neighborhoods. And so there's questions in the registration about mobility and if you have a car, or just so we can try to place people appropriately for their travel needs. And I'm trying to think of it. And yeah, all will have a composting toilet. Some have flush toilets, and some have showers. And if they don't have a shower, then there's the campground outdoor shower that's hot water, propane fed. And it's well water for drinking water. I'm trying to think of any other amenity. We're off the grid, so that means we source our electricity from the sun and water, so whether it's solar or micro hydro. So there's a request for conscientiousness when people are here on the land. Mm-hmm.
So on the registration, where do you find about the housing, please? I'm on Wild Abundance right now.
Great. I'm gonna put because the food and lodging is through the School of Integrated Living, I'm going to put our link in there as well. So because that's where you'd find out more about accommodations.
Okay.
And yeah, our website, I'll give you the link to the PDC page, but it probably has a link to accommodations and just what to expect on the land. So
I'm on the permaculture design course with Wild Abundance.
yeah, they should have a link to us as the affiliate who's hosting. But here is the School of Integrated Living's page in the chat. And let's see. Yeah, down it says
I still don't have it.
in the
Okay.
chat,
Integrated living, okay,
School of Integrated Living. Yeah.
okay. Let's just
Wow,
say,
there's so much information I've seen. I'm gonna just put a direct link to our accommodations page as well, just so as you're trying to learn more about that one aspect of the experience. So that's in the chat too.
Anyone else have a question? No question is a dumb question. All questions are welcome.
I'm just diving into the information.
Great.
I see
Yeah.
the initial picture that y'all have of the lodge looks a lot like the one I'm a Finhorn member. So it looks a lot like the hall. Yeah, it's really nice. I'm
Cool.
just going to have to be in discovery, but I did want to check in. Now, someone on the conversation said something about agroforestry.
Yeah.
Could you say a little bit more about that?
Go ahead, Zev.
Are you wondering what types of agroforestry we're going to cover in the PDC?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's a passion of mine. Agroforestry is, and one of the things that I've done the most hands-on work with also. And especially Appalachian kind of adapted agroforestry systems, like Chloe was saying, a lot of the most prominent agroforestry systems in the world are tropical, because it's kind of easier in tropical places. But there's also some really beautiful temperate agroforestry systems historically and currently. So I do a lot of coppicing and pollarding. I don't know if you know those terms, but oh yeah.
Yes, of course.
And living fences and doing experiments with rotating annual cropping with trees in kind of mid stage successional farming systems. Also, one of the design projects actually for the PDC is with a 5-acre silvopasture conversion that 2 women here are leading, turning an existing forest of dying hemlock trees into a silvopasture, including living fences, primarily for sheep. So that's a pretty interesting thing that's going on here. There's also the Earth Haven forest management plan is pretty interesting. The history here of how the forests have been managed for different types of yields, especially buildings. And we have a full forestry plan put together by a previous member of Earth Haven that calls for all kinds of different management for different sections of the forest on different timescales and for different objectives, including food and medicine and timber production and wildlife habitat. So there's a lot to learn from here. We'll actually have, I believe, 4.5 hours of sections that explicitly include agroforestry content, but I imagine we'll be referring to it in passing in a lot of other sections because it's such a pivotal core component of permaculture and regenerative land systems.
And
Well, I
then,
know this is a off-topic question a little bit, but when you come to the Finhorn community, it's not operational in an educational phase right now. We're going through a realignment, recalibration, but you have the option to stay on in community, living in community, and that's how I became a member. So I was wondering, do y'all have anything like that where if I wanted to stay, I could just stay on and work into the community?
NikiAnne, you take that?
Yeah. There are a few different avenues. Sometimes there's community members who list work exchange programs or even internship programs. And this year, the community itself is hosted through Soil. The School of Integrated Living is hosting an internship program that's 6 weeks. That's September 21st through November 2nd. And so that's our most long-term in like held program that's getting people into deeper experiences with the land and community members. And so there's a few different tracks.
Yeah, that's what
They're
I'm
all-
asking.
Yeah, they're all ag based. Well, that's not true. There's a natural building track as well.
Okay,
And
all right. Well, I
yeah,
appreciate that because I'm missing very much community, and even though I'm in the meditations, it's I'm still in Austin in the gridlock of traffic, and I'm looking for another place to be of service. So I so much appreciate all that you've done, NikiAnne. I've thoroughly been very humbled by all the work that you've done. So I just want to thank y'all very much
yeah, thank you.
for living what you're being.
Doing our best, bumbling through.
Yeah.
Jay, I know you jumped on the call once we got started. I don't know if you want to chime in and ask any questions or share anything about your curiosity. No pressure. Well, I want to also mention, for those of you who found out about this call through Earth Haven and Soil, we want to offer you this 5% discount, and Seb can also share the code that he has for a 5% discount too. So if you do decide to sign up, that influences the tuition with Wild Abundance. So that I just want to make that available. Right.
For me, the incentive is just being. But I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's definitely a good way. I mean, to dive into being at Earth Haven and seeing lots of different parts of what's going on here and doing it in a really held and connected way. I mean, the program that NikiAnne was sharing obviously is longer and more integrated specifically in Earth Haven, and the PDC is going to be more heady content. But in terms of just a deep dive, it's a great opportunity.
Well, what about someone that's already certified but has only been marginally participatory? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, you can't like get another certification,
Yeah.
but every permaculture course, like Zev was saying, there's the 72-hour core curriculum, but even that is not going to be, a lot of it will be familiar concepts, like you were saying about agroforestry and things like this, but they'll be taught through a different lens and with different examples.
Absolutely.
And then all of the additional content that we've brought in, and obviously the instructors and the sites that we work on and the design project will all be different. So I think even if you are certified and you've gone through a program before, that you would probably get a lot out of this one too.
What is the closest airport to y'all?
There's the Asheville airport, which is,
Asheville?
I guess from Earth Haven, it's like an hour.
Yeah, 45, 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then the Charlotte airport is a bigger international airport. You can usually get direct flights there from many places. And that's like 2.5 hours, 2 hours from Earth Haven.
From Earth Haven, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
And then there's a Greenville, Spartanburg in South Carolina. That's
Mhm.
a little closer than Charlotte. Eloise, you had a question? You're muted.
Muted. Yep.
Yeah, I live, my house is in Asheville and I would probably commute. And I'm remembering that you were like 40 minutes, I think, from downtown Asheville. I wondered if you considered that possible or if I should just plan to camp.
Possible and not encouraged.
Possible, but not encouraged.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an extra hour and a half plus of your life when you're already, they're early and they're late. So
Yeah. So there's
comfortable
program.
camping.
Each program day is full. There's 3 teaching sessions. So we have breakfast together and morning circle and check-in, and then there's a teaching session, and then lunch and a break and another teaching session, and then dinner and a break and another teaching session. So each day goes until about 9 p.m.
Starting at 8 a.m.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
what we
not
mean by
until 8.
intensive.
Okay.
There's breaks throughout the
Right.
day. It's not like solid,
Right.
lecture for all those hours. And there's meal times. But in terms of driving, that would be, if you were like wanting to be grounded at home, you could set up a campsite and plan to camp and then go home like 1 or 2 nights just to, recoup, sleep in your own bed for a night.
Yeah.
It's not impossible, but I think it would be pretty exhausting to be driving back.
It's more trouble than it's worth. Thank you.
Yeah, and it would separate you maybe from as much of the group experience with the hanging out with the other folks,
Folks, yeah,
in
sure.
the interstitial moments. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we are on very curvy mountain roads.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that
Yeah.
that's a wake up call for folks who don't normally travel in the dark on curvy mountain roads. They don't know.
Right.
And then the other thing I was gonna say was, there is a full day off in the middle.
Yeah.
Am I correct on that?
Yeah, on Saturday, the 21st, I believe, right?
I'll check.
Okay.
And that essentially starts, we don't have an evening session on the Friday. So the time off essentially starts after dinner on the Friday.
So it's this 22nd of June. That's the day off.
Thanks. So the 20th.
Yeah, and the day before that, the 21st, we're doing tours, and the first one is down in Hendersonville, and then one is here at Wild Abundance. So if you were wanting to go home on Thursday, June 20th, and then meet us at the tour spot in Hendersonville, you could do that, and so have 2 nights in your own bed. Right in the middle there on the 21st and 22nd. That would be a pretty easy flow if you're living in Nashville.
Yeah.
Wait, we meet in Hendersonville at one point, did you say?
We're gonna go, so on Friday, June 21st, we're gonna have tours of 2 different sites. So no, we meet at Earth Haven every other day, except for the day off. But on one day we go on a field trip and we're gonna tour a project called Tierra Fértil, Cooperativa Tierra Fértil. And we're gonna come here to the Wild Abundance site and have a tour of the buildings and systems and infrastructure here. So on that day, folks who are staying at Earth Haven will have breakfast, will do their thing, and then leave, carpool and go to Cooperativa Tierra Fértil, which is in Hendersonville. And then Wild Abundance, which is here in Barnardsville. So I was just saying, if you left the night before, slept at home, and met the group in Hendersonville, that would be an easy flow to get a little more time at home.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah. What she said.
Got it. I'm writing it all down. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I don't mean to put either of you on the spot, but I am curious. I have some questions for you, Eloise and Diana. Arjuna's there too, and we know Arjuna. She lives here at Earth Haven, so she's she's on the Culture's Edge board and one of the founders of Earth Haven. So thank you, Arjuna, if you're listening. But my question for the two of you is, if you're on the fence, what would tip the scales for you? What are the things you're navigating to make a decision, if this is a decision that you're even considering? It's helpful for us to know.
Oh, I've got to get back from Hawaii. I've got to travel the 5,000 miles and find out what kind of shape my farm is in. My son having cultivated it for the past 2 years. And there's a lot of unknowns. But yes, I'm very interested, and I'm glad it's not until June. That gives me a little bit of time to get back.
Have you been in Hawaii for 2 years?
2 years, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and so I'm away from the way things were, and I don't know how it is, right? So
yeah,
got to get back.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm just having trouble with the Zoom. It's not responding for me to come.
Okay, we can hear your voice though.
Fasting. There we go. I'm fasting the whole weekend because I need to make some major life shifts. So it's the direction for me to go for the next phase of whatever I'm going to be doing. And I am looking at legacy, and forestry is what I've been talking about with conservation plans around the country. So I'm in discovery. I'm just in discovery. So the tipping is of course, And y'all are just being who you are. So just continue to be that.
Thanks for the good advice.
Just be the best you can be.
Reckon
Yes,
that's all we can
ma'am.
do.
Yeah.
Great. Was anything else you want to share, Zev or Chloe, or anyone else? Those.
Is there a
Okay.
spiritual component to the Earth Haven? Do y'all have a sanctuary or anything like that on property?
You go ahead, Zev. Either way.
Well, I'm curious what we will each say. There are a lot of spiritual components to Earth Haven. There's not a unified or monolithic
No,
set
I'm
of
not
spiritual
asking that at
practices,
all.
right?
It's just a sacred space that's set apart.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of different overlapping groups of people that have different spiritual practices and places on the land that we consider sacred in different ways, and it's quite a mosaic. It's kind of like a microcosm of the larger world, I think, that we're coming together here with all of our own lineages and all of our own ancestral beauties and wounds, and making an ecosystem out of that and putting them all in relationship to each other. So yeah, I think that's what I'll say. NikiAnne.
Yeah, and sure, I think a lot of people would say all of our land is sacred, everything is sacred. And sure, there's
Right.
maybe some PowerPoints for certain people. As far as structures, the one thing I would feels noteworthy to mention is that one of our neighbors has a Zendo, and there's meditation there every day. And that's often something that our participants may choose to take advantage of in that 0 hour, before breakfast if a meditation is happening. But it's always open for sitting meditation.
And I will say, in terms of the PDC, a thread that has connected Zev and I since we became friends like over a decade ago is, I guess, what you could call in a word like animacy. And so with permaculture design courses, especially by and for middle-class white people, of which there are many, I am a middle-class white person, so no, I'm not like criticizing that population, but there can be this sort of like mechanistic way of looking at things, kind of like we're looking at nature as like the ultimate engineer, and nature is this other thing outside of us, and we're copying the machinery that nature has created. And while there's some threads of that ring true and that we bring into the PDC, I'm, and please speak up, but I feel like I can speak for both of us, Zev, we really are holding it in a little more of a reverent way and an interrelated way, and acknowledging nature as something that's alive within all beings, including ourselves. And not just looking at like water as a resource or a source of potential energy, but also as a being. And so in that way, there's a spiritual element that will be infused in the PDC. And as I was saying, like not in a monolithic way, not like pressuring anybody to relate with the other than human world in a way that doesn't feel comfortable or aligned with their own spiritual beliefs, but just bringing up the possibility that we can be interrelating with our kin who are not all human, and intending all of our different relations with that kind of respect of that we want to give any community that we're involved in, whether they're human or other than human. That's kind of foundational to how both Zev and I see the world and practice permaculture, and hope to continue learning and improving our capacity and becoming stronger and more attuned in that way. So I just want to name that piece too, that there is like you could say a spiritual element to the PDC as well.
Well, it sounded very indigenous. I was wondering how far it was from the Cherokee nation because I'm quarter Cherokee. So that's what I'm looking into also.
Hmm.
That's great. But as I do have another one to get onto, I thank y'all very much for this evening. And I will be in touch one way or another.
All right. Very nice
Thank
to meet you both
you.
and everyone else who's on the recording. And if those folks who receive the recording still do have questions, just feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out through Soil or through Wild Abundance, and we're happy to answer your questions too. So if you're sitting with a question that's kind of you're on the fence and you're sitting with a question, please reach out and answer it, and we'd love to engage with you in conversation.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. That seems.
Good night.